tell us a little bit about yourself, what we might already know, but then maybe something that we don't know.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm Gregory Diaz the fourth. I'm 19 years old. I grew up here in New York City. I'm a full-bred New Yorican through and through. I grew up between here in the Bronx and Castle Hill, not too far away, and in Queens as well, in Ridgewood. Yeah, I don't know, what else about me? Right now I go to Columbia University. I'm in my second year studying film and media studies. So that's pretty exciting, also along with, the work that I do and whatnot. Something you might not know about me, I have two little siblings. I don't really post about them a whole lot, so it's not really public information. Yeah, I mean, some people know about my little brother, but yeah, I have two little siblings, and I actually have a little sister who just turned 3. So I have like a 16-year age gap between me and my little sister. But yeah.
It's very cool. And I want to tell you a little bit about us.
Yes, please.
So we are an arts high school. We've got tons of amazing artists in the school. You can see if you ever walk by our hallways. We didn't walk through our school hallways, but littered with their beautiful artwork. Can we name some of the places where some of your art has been shown?
Oh, McDonald's.
No, but it's been in
But it was a nice McDonald's, though.
Courthouse. We should have had the art teachers here to tell you, but I think we've been in the Met. We've been amazing museums. I'm sorry?
We are art school? Yes!
He's a goof. He's part of the theater program, obviously. But we now also have performing arts, right?
Amazing.
Which is very exciting. Who are my honors students? Can my honors students wave? Say hi. What did we just perform? Noise is Off, the smash hit comedy. And my musical theater, where are you? Wave, wave. What are we performing this year? Little Shop of Horrors.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes. And we have one junior who's not here today. She's sick. But she wrote and is directing her own show that's going to be performed in this room.
Wow.
Which is really exciting. So shout out to you, Felisa, a.k.a. Mena. So that's a little bit about us. And back to you, if I may.
Yeah.
So you talked to us a little bit about growing up in the Bronx. Do you have any recollection or memory about like your favorite spot or what you would do locally?
Well, so like I said, I grew up between the Bronx and Queens, so I would do a lot of bouncing around back and forth. Honestly, I think in the Bronx, I just have like very vivid memories of like landmarks and whatnot around the areas, kind of like when I would drive in or when I would take the bus in, coming in from Queens. Or also just like, I'm a huge Yankee fan, so I just have a lot of memories that are attached to Yankee Stadium and that area specifically. Or yeah, just, I don't know, maybe just memories on the train too, the 6 train, the Green Line. Yeah, little stuff like that. But like little bits and pieces that, come together, they make the beautiful big picture of the Bronx.
Quite true. And the beautiful picture of your memory, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So these guys want to one day fill in your shoes, right? This is what they want to do. They want to be in film. They want to be on the stage. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in this business that they one day would like to be in?
Yeah.
When did you start, etc.?
Yeah. Well, originally this was not, the path that I had set forward for myself. I started acting professionally, and when I say professionally, I mean being signed to an agent who was, actively getting me work or looking to get me work for probably going on 8 or 9 years now. But prior to that professional period, I was also still working, doing like non-union projects and whatnot for maybe a year or 2 years beforehand. So I've been doing this 10 years at least now. But yeah, before that, honestly, my plan was to be a New York Yankee. I wanted to be their third baseman. Again, I'm Puerto Rican through and through, so baseball just kind of runs through my blood, and I love it. maybe love it more than acting. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but yeah, that was, you know, the trajectory that I had set for myself. And then randomly, just one day, I decided that I wanted to try this acting thing out. I had seen Matilda on Broadway, which was a really big inspiration and influence for me, mostly because I was just seeing, you know, people that looked like me in my age range on stage doing something that looked cool. And, you know, I will be so honest with you guys, I probably shouldn't, but you know, when I was younger, I looked at theater and I maybe thought to myself like, oh, that looks weird. You know, like this is not the move. Like I'm going to get made fun of. Nobody's going to understand why I'm here. Like, you know, but eventually when you find your group and you find your footing and you just find your passion for it, I'm sure a lot of you can relate when I say like all that other stuff just kind of goes away because you found something that you're happy about, something that you're passionate about. So yeah, that was really it. I had seen Matilda. That was a really big inspiration. I pretty much looked at them and I was like, well, if they're doing it, why can't I? And then I did. Fortunately enough, I don't know, maybe after like 2 or 3 rounds of auditions and callbacks, I got to be a part of, well, I did a couple months on Broadway, and then I went and did 6 months in their national tour. Yeah, and that was really like one of my first really big projects that I was a part of. I mean, before I even made the transition into TV and film acting, I originally started out in theater. I mean, y'all are in high school, so I even did a semester at PPAS in Manhattan, which is a professional performing arts school over there. So, you know, that was definitely the plan forward. I've been very fortunate enough in my young career to have worked on a lot of, I would like to think, important projects that have had influence in their different ways and whatnot. And also just lucky enough to work on projects that I have thought were really cool and fortunately enough as well were also fun to be a part of. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's how I kind of started out. I think in hindsight, listening to everything I said, it can also sound maybe a bit unrealistic because I didn't mention all the other little details that were along the way. But again, you know, I've this is now like my 10th year doing this, and it's not just an overnight process. It rarely is ever going to be, maybe unless you're like Jen Ortega or something like that.
So you talked about your transition first from the stage to film and TV. Can you talk about, you know, I don't want to say the pros and cons of each, but like what sticks out to you as the difficult part of each, and what do you enjoy most about both?
Yeah, okay. Stage acting I really enjoy because like you're just there present in the moment, and you just have that one show. I mean, if you know, I guess on a higher level, like on a Broadway level or a national tour, you get 8 shows a week, and you just have that one show, you know, that one night to do it right, do it how it's meant to be seen. Because every night it's supposed to be the same show. You know, there is a polished version of it, but I think what I also enjoy so much about theater, and what might also be another pro, is that it can be spontaneous. You know, this is a live performance that's happening, and also just the etiquette around theater I think is also very admirable. You know, I kind of enjoy the idea of everybody coming together, phones away, phones off, and paying attention to that moment. But at the same time, etiquette-wise, it is also worth mentioning, you know, theater is still very expensive, and pretty inaccessible to a lot of people, which is unfortunate, at least, you know, on that professional Broadway level. A con to, honestly, I would say that is a pro and con as well. The fact that it's, you know, like in that moment and you just have that one show, because you could do something really amazing that night and maybe you want to try it again tomorrow, or you could have like completely blanked and missed your line on stage and you stood there for in silence for 10 seconds, and it was a live show, so everybody saw that. But you know, you always have tomorrow. You have the next show. Until you don't. No, I'm kidding. There's always a next show. Yep. For TV and film, pros and cons of TV and film. That's kind of tough. Honestly, TV and film is really nice. I'm not gonna lie. TV and film is really nice. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a love for theater and for musical theater specifically, and I would love to make my return to that. Yeah, I guess, okay, a pro of TV and film, honestly, I think is just like how many people are usually involved with a project. Like I said, I've been really fortunate enough to have work on projects that, you know, everybody was cool, everybody was chill, and everybody was there for the right reasons. So for that reason, the sets have operated very smoothly and nicely. I've also had, you know, the unfortunate experience of like being on sets that maybe didn't run as smoothly or as well. So to have that on what you would still consider, or what they would still call like a live set, is always nice. So I think, to put it in fewer words, like the community that can be established on a set is very nice. A con to TV and film, I think, is how many takes you can get if you really, if the director allows it. I mean, a director could say that they only want to give you 2 takes and you only have 2 takes. Or they could just say, you know, do whatever you want and just let it flow. And in that case, you might get 50 takes or 60 takes, or I've done scenes where there was over 100 takes.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, I think having that freedom can be nice, because you can always see something you don't like and go back and fix it. But at the same time, that can also kind of be your enemy, because you're watching stuff and you get to nitpicking. And I guess also for that reason, there's, you know, I have some friends that work in the business who don't even watch, you know, their finished work, or they don't watch their takes or whatnot, because they just get too over analytical with themselves, and very like hypercritical in what they're doing. So yeah, that's definitely a con to the screen side of it.
And then just staying in the moment, right, is tough when you're in the moment 50 times.
Yeah. I mean, that too can also be difficult. And I guess in my years that I've been doing this, I've noticed that it seems to be very particular to the actor or the actress, and kind of how their own process goes. I know for me, at least, like, I kind of describe it as a switch, like a light switch, where like I just kind of have this ability where it's like, okay, action or rolling, and I can turn on the light switch to have the character there, right. And then like turn off that light switch and be myself. Yeah, I mean, the last project I worked on, The Long Game, me personally, I didn't feel like I was playing much of a different version of myself, maybe other than the fact that he was Mexican. But yeah, like my co-stars had mentioned to me, kind of like how they were seeing that switch within me, which I never noticed as I never thought it to be something that was like so identifiable to other people the way that it felt for me.
Right.
But yeah, they came up to me and they were like, no, like there's like a visible difference between you and your character. I mean, granted, like I took my glasses off, I had makeup on, my hair was done, but like aside from that, they just said like the way that I was like carrying myself and whatnot, which I found interesting, because I'm not, and nor do I consider myself much of like a method actor or, you know, like a character actor. It is very much more so of just like having that switch that I'm able to turn on and off.
Right. And you talked earlier about your appreciation for having done meaningful projects or important projects, I'm assuming to yourself, but also to the world. And you have a lot of fans here. They know you from some of them. But are there any projects that you feel were really meaningful to you, and or meaningful that you feel really hit home for a lot of people?
Yeah, in the Heights.
Any fans?
I mean, thank you, thank you. Yeah, in the Heights. In the Heights was like a fairy tale dream come true. I mean, again, being a huge theater person, well, eventually becoming a huge theater person, being a Hamilton fan myself, being a fan of Lynn and everybody that was involved with that. That was just like a really surreal experience to be able to part of that, and obviously I'm blessed, and that was a grateful experience. Yeah, I mean, honestly, everything about that, we filmed that for about 3 months and had like a month of rehearsal. So we were together for like 4 or 5 months, pretty much throughout the entirety of the summer and then like a little bit beforehand.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, during those months together, we pretty much just became a family, which was really, really nice. And I know I've kind of mentioned that about every project, but In the Heights was a little bit different. It was just like everybody there was purely there for their love for that project individually and just wanted to see it turn out the right way.
It did, am I right?
Yeah, everybody was there and they just really wanted to see it turn out the right way. Obviously, not just because Lynn is involved and we have him there and whatnot, but also just like everybody that we had. And yes, it's a big budget studio film, but I think also just that just goes to show, how much work and time and dedication people like Lynn and our writer Kiara or our music director Alex and whatnot, like how these different figures who are from New York themselves, just like how much time they've put in, into these projects over time. I mean, In the Heights came out in 2008, when maybe some of you guys were just being born, but I mean, I was only in diapers then, so it's, people ask me if I saw the show on Broadway, and I'm like, no, I didn't, sorry. But yeah, that whole experience was surreal, just to be able to work with all those people that I not only looked up to, but kind of idolized in a way. I mean, my final audition was in front of Lynn, the director, John, who just did Wicked. And then also I was reading with Anthony Ramos, that was fun. Yeah, and I found out that same day, actually, after I walked out of my final audition, probably 3 hours later or whatnot. Yeah, I had gotten the call saying that I had gotten the project, which was actually a FaceTime call from Lynn.
Wow. And can you tell everybody, is that something that's typical? That you would walk out of an audition and find out that day? Even if it's final?
No, not at all. I honestly can't even like remember another time when that might have happened to me, where I just got an offer the same day. Yeah, no, that was, well, my dad slash manager had heard before I did because I was in the dentist. So he waited until I got out of the dentist, to tell me, which was nice. Yeah.
Amazing. So before I turn it over to them, because they're dying to talk to you, I have a couple of questions. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, and 20 years from now? What do you see yourself doing?
5 years from now, in 5 years from now, I hope to, I'm gonna keep it real. 5 years from now, I'm hoping to not still live with my parents. I'm hoping to have my own place, maybe have my own car, and be consistently working where, acting can be something that I can just fully dedicate myself to, be done with school, and just fully dedicate myself to my work and my craft and be able to stay afloat and sustain off of that. 10 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe worked on a couple of bigger projects. Maybe I'm a Marvel superhero or something like that. That would be kind of dope. Yeah, 20 years from now, I'm sitting on a porch, drinking coffee, looking out on a view, and I have several awards on my right and all my loved ones on my left.
Let's all put that out in the world. Let's make that happen. Do you ever see yourself writing your own either stage play or screenplay that you would direct? Are you interested in being in that side of the camera, or?
Yeah, 100%. I actually, this past November, just produced my first project, which was a short film titled Jodon, which takes place here in the Bronx and is also based on a true story. Yeah, I've tried to dabble in writing a little bit, but I've found for me at least the process to be a bit difficult. So that's been interesting trying to figure out. Yeah, and directing is, I think out of the three, directing is kind of what I'm interested in the most, which is also the most technical and kind of involves the most work.
And really encompasses everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just want to like point at people and tell them what to do. No, I don't. But honestly, that might be too much pressure. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, directing does sound really exciting, and I'm hoping this year to work on a couple of short form documentaries.
Nice.
That. Well, it would really just be me working on them, like working on a script, directing, and whatnot.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I mean, those short films, I would really just be focusing on like different parts of New York City, and things like that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
2 more questions, and I'm going to open it up to them.
Yeah, of course.
So my son at home, hi Mason, is a huge Vampires vs. the Bronx.
No. Okay.
Can you talk about that film, your experience on the film? Do you have a love for horror or vampires? How did that all happen, and what was it like to work on that production?
Yeah. Well, Vampires vs. the Bronx was honestly, I want to say one of, if not the first, maybe like big studio production that I had been a part of. Well, feature film wise, you know, where I was in a leading role. And for that to kind of be my first experience, I think was amazing. I mean, I met one of who is now, you know, one of my lifelong best friends and like a brother to me, Jaden Michael, another fellow actor who, you know, we went to high school together, graduated from high school together, we're in college together. Yeah. So even apart from that, just the connections that I made on that project were really amazing. And also to see the response and the feedback that we got afterwards was also just, you know, really great. And also for that project to be somewhere on Netflix where, you know, I can have friends and family that are interested be able to go and watch. I mean, Netflix is so, you know, accessible. So,
Right.
Yeah, that was a really awesome project to be a part of. And the filming process was really cool. Like you mentioned, it's a bit of a horror comedy. So to be, you know, behind the scene aspects of that are always really cool and interesting. You know, like on camera, the vampires are pretty scary, but behind the camera, they're just like a bunch of goofs. Yeah, I mean, I got to work with Method Man from the Wu-Tang Clan, which was dope. Yeah, that was just a lot of fun. I mean, I want to say maybe 13.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe a little bit younger. But yeah, around that age when I filmed that, and that was during the summer. So filming in the summer is always nice because if you're still in school, then you don't have to do schoolwork because there's no school, right? So yeah, no schoolwork, which a lot of my projects have been during the summer. So a lot of them just kind of feel like summer camp in a really fun way.
And so, final question, very important to them, and I'll open it up. What advice would you give these young people who are looking to break into the business, whether it's stage, behind the scene, film? You've made it, you know? You're living the life that they would love to live. What is the secret formula? What's the recipe to make that happen? And I know there is none, but what advice can you give them?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you answered that because that's where you were about to get, that there is none. I mean, yeah, you've probably heard it 1,000 times before, and that's why he's saying it over here. But there genuinely is no recipe to, trying to make it. It's really just, before anything else, your own, perseverance, your own excitement for your work, your own passion, your own wants, your own needs that you're putting ahead of yourself and using to drive you to go and do this thing that you love. But that's also something that is very important to me. I think you have to be in love with this, because if you're not, it's going to be really, really hard to try and make this your work and make a living off of this if you're not in love with it, because it is something that you have to give your all. There's 100% going to be times when you feel like you can't give it your all and you're distracted with other things. But I just feel like as long as you have that love and a passion for it, it's going to remain a constant in your life no matter what. And it's always going to be something that you can come back to because, you have that love for it. I guess more on like a technical side of things, if this is something that you're thinking about pursuing, there are plenty of websites that you can go on. There's plenty of research that you can do, and different services and subscriptions and things like that you can get access to that are going to give you access to seeing, auditions, whether they be open call or not. And that's also how you can work on trying to get an agent. That's honestly one of the biggest things, is trying to get an agent that's going to help you get seen. Not only, there's such a large selection of auditions and whatnot that you might be seeing when you don't have an agent versus when you do. And that's probably more than likely going to open a very large pool for you. But also, I think when you sign with an agent, that is kind of that defining moment where you're deciding, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Or rather, this is what I want to do. So yeah, I mean, I guess to wrap it up, because that was a lot, there's no linear straight line at all. Every actor I've talked to has had a different process on their own. My best friend started when he was 3 and started out, it's okay. My best friend started out when he was 3 and started out in like modeling and whatnot, and then switched into acting. I have some other friends that started out later than I did, and they're doing well. But I think it's also worth mentioning, and it's always important to remember that an actor is not just someone that looks like me, someone that I guess is recognizable, someone that you're going to see on TV or see them in the street and be able to point them out. An actor could be the person that served you your sandwich at the deli, like, and you don't even know it. True. An actor could be the guy that drove you on the bus here, or the dude that was, in charge of the train in the MTA. So a lot of actors are also striving after other things, whether they want to or not, because this acting thing is difficult and it's not made to be easy. Unfortunately, when you get into the world, you might discover that there's a lot of other yous out there, in the sense that they look like you, but it's always just remember to understand that, like, no one is ever actually going to be you. You are your own you, and that's your selling factor. You have to sell yourself. That's what an audition is. An audition is, it's an interview. It's a regular job interview, but maybe you're doing 5 job interviews a week when the average person might do 5 job interviews in their life.
Right. Very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
You talked about needing that drive and the passion to make it. Mm-hmm. There are some amazing kids here who have that. And so I am going to open the floor to them, and I'm going to get out of the way, but I am going to grab a microphone for them. And I'm going to introduce you to somebody, because I always do. Alasia, come here. Alasia is a graduating senior, and she's a lead in every show.
Okay.
but also my assistant director. So she just makes things happen. And Alasia, there would be nobody better than you to hand that microphone around, and maybe even to start with your own question.
I do actually have a question. So you talked about how you had that switch when you could turn it off. How did you develop that switch?
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would describe it as something that I developed. I think it more so was something that I kind of just discovered that I had. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be really weird, where like, it, again, like it was always something that I was able to notice, but never something that I thought other people could notice. So when I found out that other people could, I think that's when I like kind of learned how dramatic that maybe look or appearance could be. But yeah, I don't know if it was really something that, well, okay, I do know. It was definitively not something that I was actively trying to work on or develop. It just kind of ended up happening, and then I realized it was something that I had, so I used it to my advantage and as a tool.
How did?
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Samantha. How did you personally go about kind of like finding that agent for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I did what was called like a showcase, an agent or manager showcase, which was basically, doing like a song, a monologue, maybe something else, in front of pretty much a room like this. And instead of a bunch of high schoolers, you guys would be a bunch of agents or managers. And yeah, you just do your piece, and if they like you, they'll give you a call, hopefully. And that was, oh, I'm blanking on the name right now, which isn't great, but, oh yeah, there you go. It was a Class Act New York, which are pretty much like acting classes that are offered in Manhattan, with different actors and stuff, and they do like different intensive classes. But that they had a showcase through them, that I was a part of, and then that's how I was able to get seen. And I know that showcase still goes on now because my dad, who is now a manager, is one of the managers who sits in and watches their talents. So
That was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask. How did your dad become your manager? Like, did he already have the job, or did he see your passion, was decided to be like, yeah, I want to do this for my son?
yeah, in a way I kind of didn't give him a choice. I mean, he did have another job. He had a regular 9 to 5, and he was working there, but kind of behind my back, unbeknownst to me, he was working on like developing his own art of being a manager for me. He took like the time and the dedication, and was also, I mean, is wholeheartedly the reason why I am where I'm at today, is because of my father. But yeah, so he kind of just surprised me out of nowhere and decided that he was going to be my full-time manager. He was going to leave his job and just fully dedicate himself to that. But there was a little bit before that where he was still trying to balance the both. And then it just kind of got to a point where I was working so much that I just kind of forced him into it, and he didn't really have a choice. Yeah.
Don't forget to introduce yourselves, guys.
So hi, I'm Issa, and I was wondering, you originally said that acting wasn't your originally your life plan. So like, what did you want to be originally when you grew up?
Yeah. I was really into baseball, and I thought that was what I was going to do. For a really long time, I wanted to be third baseman for the New York Yankees, even though my favorite player was Derek Jeter, which didn't make much sense because he's a shortstop. But besides that, yeah, I mean, my dad played baseball, my grandfather played baseball, and that wasn't even really a part of the reason why I felt like I had to go and play or do that. It was just something that I really enjoyed personally. It brought me a lot of joy. And I thought to myself at a very young age, if I can make money off of that, that sounds pretty nice. But that's also another pretty I would say worse than acting. That's a pretty, hard dream to chase and go after. Sports, professional sports.
How would you describe sort of like that balance between like your work and school, like now and before?
Yeah. It's been interesting. I think for me at least, what was really important was just the understanding that if I don't do good in school, I literally cannot work. I mean, once you're like under a certain age, if you want to be an actor and you're also in school, you have to get work permits, and those have to get signed off on by your principal, people in the city. And that's only getting signed off on if you have good grades. So if you don't have good grades, you literally cannot work. So that was really just like the driving factor for me. Also like high school, I looked at high school as like my job. Maybe I personally didn't also have a job outside of high school. So like, because of that, I just came to school, did what I had to do, maybe had a little fun, and then went back home. And it was, just making sure to focus on school. I got that over with, and then I was able to really just dive headfirst into acting and being able to do that. Now at college, it's a little bit easier, kind of, just because of the program at school that I'm in, where I have the flexibility to be able to work and do school at the same time. But workload wise, and maybe kind of, what's being asked of me sometimes can be a bit more difficult, just because you're writing a little bit more, maybe reading a little bit more than you are now.
So since Gregory is such a student, he does have class, so we have time for 2 more questions. 2 more.
Hello, my name is Marcos, and you mentioned earlier that you started out working in this career at a very young age. I'm assuming most other actors that you've worked with didn't start working as young as you did. So I'm wondering, how does it feel to be on the, I'm sorry if this is phrased poorly, but how does it feel being on the younger side of actors while working with some that may be a lot older than you?
Yeah. I think being a child actor can be a very interesting experience, mostly because there can often be times where you're overlooked or just generally looked at differently because you're a child, so they think that maybe you can't do your job as well as you can. And unfortunately, there are child actors out there that make a bad rep for, the ones that actually are there to do their work, because they're just there running around doing whatever, not prepared. But you do also have the actors or the child actors that are genuinely passionate about what it is that they're doing, and they're passionate about the craft, and they understand the position that they're in to be on a set, to be working, and they're there to do what they have to do. So yeah, it seems to be a universal experience, and a conversation that I've had with other, former child actors, because a lot of us now are, I guess, entering or exiting out of the child actor kind of phase. Yeah, it's been like a constant conversation recently. And a lot of them seem to agree with me in the sense that they think, child actors don't really, I don't want to say they don't get the respect that they deserve, because it's not to that extent, but can be overlooked or maybe overshadowed, casted over at times. So it's kind of interesting, I think, to be in this transitional period where I'm now entering as, I guess, maybe a quote-unquote adult actor, and seeing maybe how people are treating me differently, or kind of the levels of respect that I might have now. But at the same time, at points, sometimes it's understandable, because it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years now. So I think people hear that and they look at it, and it's kind of like, not like a seniority thing, but just an understanding that maybe I have some experience that others won't. And for me personally, experience on set has been what I've learned from the most. As much as I love acting classes, dancing classes, whatever it might be, actively being on set and being alert and watching has been my biggest tool and the thing that has helped me out the most in my career.
Time for one more, guys.
Yo, my name is Nasir, and I just really wanted to know, like, how was your experience meeting Lin-Manuel Miranda? Like, that's crazy. You met the Hamilton,
Yeah.
pretty much.
It was crazy. I mean, so yeah, to find out that I booked In the Heights, I got a FaceTime call as soon as I got out of the dentist, sitting in the car with my dad. And it's a FaceTime call from a random number, so I answered like this. And then I heard his voice first, and I went. And then before I could even see his face, you just see his Tony sitting in the background. And you're like, what the hell? What is Tony for Hamilton? Who the hell is this? And then he just popped into frame. That was a super surreal experience. Well, I mean, so my dad knew beforehand. They told him that he was going to do that, which Lin had done for other members in the cast as well. But yeah, so there's like a recorded reaction of me on the phone, on FaceTime, getting the call and all that. And just straight then and there, he just popped the question like, oh, do you want to be our Sonny? And I was just like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Trying to play it real cool, nonchalant at first. But as soon as he hung up, I was tweaking out. And then even in that day that I found out that I got the job, earlier that day was the first time I was ever even face to face with him in the room. And that, honestly, again, that switch where I think I was in that final audition and I don't remember a whole lot of what happened in it. I just remember who was there. And I think I was just so out of it, but also at the same time, just really trying to lock in and do what I had to do. And the combination of that just created I just don't remember a whole lot from that day, but I do remember the feelings that I got from being in the room with them. I mean, it was really exciting. He obviously not only was, but is someone that I continue to look up to. And being a fan of Hamilton beforehand, being a fan of In the Heights, and then finally getting to meet him was just a dream come true. Also, him being Puerto Rican, me being Puerto Rican, him being from New York, me being from New York was just it was really amazing to be able to see someone that looked so much like me doing so much more than everybody else in the industry. And not just that, but also just the basic idea that even within the Heights, that was conceived and came out of the idea that there was not anything for him to be a part of himself. So he just went and decided to write it. And he did.
And I think what you just said there is exactly what makes today special. Because I think these kids look at you and they don't see much different from when they look at themselves, And to see that you've made it, to see that you've been in a Lin-Manuel show, to see that you've been on Broadway, living the life that they want to live, it's just inspiring, and I think you reached a lot of people today. And I speak for them, but they'll probably say it in a second too. Thank you so much for being here. You definitely made a huge impact today. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.